you and I have been talking about for the past year, which is the Waymo and Uber relationship. And while, many people will say, oh, expected, the stock was off 5%, not expected, ultimately by investors to that degree. It was certainly another leg down in the stock. And we've talked about how every kind of, plus and minus of this relationship has resulted in some movement in the stock. But I think the key data here is that Waymo is going to have its own app in Austin and Atlanta in January of 28. The entire contract, Grayson, ends in May of 2028. I think we just have to assume that it will end by then. So we have timelines. And so when we go to Austin and Atlanta in January of 28, we won't have to hope that we get a Waymo, when we use the app and try and figure out ways to get the Waymo there. So I guess the first question I have for you is, do you think this really ends up lasting until January of 2028? Do you think we will not see a Waymo One app in Austin and Atlanta before January of 28?
It's my belief that the game of autonomous roulette will end sooner than the date that the FT reported. Now, if you want to say the cat's out of the bag, and now that it's been publicly documented, publicly reported, and confirmed by the companies in that article, I want to point out it wasn't speculation, it was confirmed by the companies in that FT report. I say, and I'll say this for the record, this relationship is going to terminate sooner rather than later. The question is, does Uber try and hold on until they have a partner to replace it that is ready for it? That is the thing that I'm watching.
In this report, and it's citing the companies, they're talking about complaints on both sides, right? Waymo talking about dirty cars, which I know is one of your hot button items, but also bad routing. When you think about that, very high profile and embarrassing. The mainstream media loves to pick up on these Waymos circling around a cul-de-sac and make the autonomous vehicle look bad. But apparently those cars were sent there by Uber. On the flip side, Uber's talking about, how it doesn't work in weather, okay, or weather no-shows and unsustainable financial terms. Again, according to this, I think, press report. I guess let's start on the Waymo side of things, because they're the ones that seem more anxious to get out of this agreement. It feels like it's Uber that's holding them there till January of 28. If Uber is in fact routing their cars in this way, where the cars are not getting maintained the way Waymo is expected, wouldn't Google have good enough lawyers to have had out clauses to get out of these contracts prior to January of 2028?
Alphabet has some of the finest lawyers in the world. And the one thing with autonomy, as we've seen in the various different incidents that have happened with individuals sabotaging these vehicles, there's cameras and there's data. So perhaps these lawyers are going through the data and comparing it to the data they have in-house to potentially find an out. I don't know. I'm just assuming, because you and I both know, and our audience knows, these vehicles gather a lot of data.
Again, let's get a specific answer out of you. When will we see in Austin or Atlanta a Waymo One app?
I will go on the record and I will say by June of 2027.
I'm going to take an under on that, because I just think that this relationship is just, at this point, is publicly, torn. So, what's the point of extending this? And I think, certainly Uber can operate. It could be a quick switch, right? I don't think Uber can obviously continue to operate in that market without any problems. And, I'm not sure how long it really takes Waymo to stick them on their own app. I wouldn't think it takes that long. So I'm going to take the under on your June 27th.
The reason I'm saying June 27, so today's July 30th, these are all hypothetical made up numbers. Waymo's going to have to get a depot. They're going to have to get charging infrastructure in the ground. They're going to have to get permits. That takes time. So you're looking at months of that. And then on the Uber side, I'm also taking the hedge of how long until Avride is ready to go in Austin. Perhaps Avride will be the new partner that replaces Waymo. That's just an assumption there. But based on the presence that we've seen from the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, where the Avride vehicles are clearly ramping up in Texas.
I mean, that's some optimism right there. By Grayson, on behalf of Uber, with one of their partners in Avride. And, I put out a report on this earlier this week. I went through each of the partners, Motional, Avride, and our experiences that we both have had with them, Nuro, Rivian, Bobby, Zoox, right? In the U.S., May Mobility even as a partnership. I mean, you look at the most optimistic scenarios for these companies, and a year from today, what in aggregate of cars autonomous will they have on the road? I'm going to say autonomous, Grayson. I'm going to say even with a safety driver. I'm going to give you the safety driver. How many you have on the road in a month in aggregate? My guess is less than 1,000. And then compare that to where will Waymo be in a year's time? You know what the number is? 10,000. 10,000 in 30 markets. And how many are the Uber partners going to have in a year? Now, look, we don't judge this industry over the course of a year. It's really where we're going to be in year 3 and year 5 and what have you. But think about that and the catalyst over the next year and how that looks.
Well, supervised is not autonomous. Supervised doesn't count. Waymo has set the bar. It is not supervised. They've set the bar in terms of vehicles, which are roughly around 3,000 according to Bloomberg. They set the vehicle in terms of ODD size. Waymo is the global benchmark that everybody is striving to meet.